UK economy shrank more than 20% in the second quarter, outstripping every major European country. The record slump pushes Britain into its first recession since 2009, raising questions over the government's handling of the pandemic, of course. Chancellor Rishi Sunak warned of many more job losses in the coming months. Pierre Ortlieb is OMFIF senior economist and is still with us. Pierre, in terms of the performance of the UK versus the rest of Europe, the UK doesn't seem to have done worse in the second quarter than other European countries. But is that just because the lockdown fell more squarely into the UK's second quarter? We were later into lockdown, so it didn't really hit the first quarter quite so much. And also, of course, we're much more reliant on services in this country. What is it that is weighing on the UK economy?
I think you're right. It has to do with that sort of 2-week delay that we experienced in sort of the start of the lockdown. That being said, while many European economies have introduced parallel furlough schemes, there's an argument to be made in favor of the sort of greater extent of fiscal stimulus that we saw in many European economies, as well as the labor market flexibility that has benefited economies like Germany, where there has so far been a lot of praise for the sort of the part-time work that many employees are able to enter into. So that kind of dampens the impact on the real economy. That being said, I would put little stock in GDP figures at this stage, both because they're sort of partly delayed and because the real brunt of the real economy shock is still to come, and it'll come when the furlough schemes across the UK. Yeah, sorry?
Well, we're looking at a great full-screen graphic that shows and compares, for example, the UK furlough scheme at the top with Germany's Kurzarbeit at the bottom. And I think the point that you're making is, you know, schemes like the UK have an end date. So that means that a lot of those people are going to be fired at some point in the coming future. We can guess probably in October. I think 33% of respondents said they're going to fire their furloughed employees. Those employees, in turn, probably aren't out on spending sprees, so the economy is weakened by that already, but it'll be much worse when it happens. Meanwhile, in Germany, the Kurzarbeit scheme, which covers a smaller amount of wages, is nonetheless open-ended. So it seems like it would be a much better situation for the German economy in the coming months than in the UK economy.
Yeah, you're right. I think you've hit the nail on the head there. It's a question of short-term artificial state demand in the labor market in the case of the furlough scheme versus more long-run flexibility and resilience in the longer term, right? And so once the short-term scheme expires, then you really have the worst of the real economy hit. You mentioned that figure of 33% from the recent study. That, to me, suggests that the worst is still yet to come for employment figures. I mean, it's going to be sort of devastating for small businesses, especially once the furlough scheme expires. So there's cause to be pessimistic, and that's, you know, you have to see that as in context of the decision to potentially delay the budget in October as well. There's sort of reasonable sort of justifications for that, but then you kind of also want updated forecasts from the UK's forecasting office. So the furlough scheme decision and the October budget are sort of a big juncture for the UK economy.
What do you make of the unemployment picture then, Pierre? We've had this warning then from the Treasury, from the Chancellor, that unemployment will rise. Many more will lose their jobs, he says. And we got unemployment figures yesterday, which showed the extent of unemployment we're already dealing with here in the UK. What kind of rate would you expect? And of course, we're only at, 3.9% right now. But what kind of rate would you expect unemployment to peak at?
Well, we don't do unemployment forecasting at OMFIF, so I'm reluctant to put a number on it. But I expect that it would get significantly worse if and when the furlough scheme expires. But yeah, reluctant to put a specific number on that.